Tiago Enrique Gomes de Rocha is a serial killer from Goiás, Brazil. He's been deemed one of the worst serial killers in the history of the state of Goiás, with a kill count of at least 39. Known as the motorcycle killer of Goiás, he was active from 2011 to 2014, and at the time of making this video, is 33 years old. Tiago was born on February 4th, 1988. While never knowing his father, he grew up with his mother and brother by his side, who he apparently cared about very much. Whether or not living a fatherless life would influence what he would eventually become is still up for debate. His family would say he was always a respectful and helpful young man, but according to other people that knew him, he was always a very antisocial kid. Though, unbeknownst to anyone, there would be something more sinister to become of Tiago, because his antisocial behavior seemed to have intensified after Tiago, at the age of only 11 years old, was taken advantage of by a neighbor. According to Tiago, his abuse lasted for a whole month, during which Tiago protests that, after that, I felt like I was nothing. This event sat dormant with Tiago for years to come, and as he went through his life at school, he was never fully able to overcome the damage that had been done, or the rage that ensued within him. It infiltrated his personality, and because of that, he was quieter than the rest of the kids at his school. This made him an easy target for bullying from all the bigger kids. And if that wasn't enough, he would claim that he experienced nothing but rejection when it came to the girls he had interest in, which would have a major impact on who he'd eventually conduct his heinous murders on. After graduating high school, Tiago found a job as a security guard with a private firm, which he was able to stick with for 2 years. Tiago took on the role of a protector for whatever his job called for. But during the final bit of time he was working at the firm, these urges to kill would be too great to resist. Tiago claims that there had been a bottled rage brewing inside of him, partly due to the abuse he experienced when he was 11, partly due to the bullying he experienced in school, and partly due to the rejection he faced growing up. He states, "I tried to do other things to get it out, the rage, but they didn't work." Alcohol was his method of choice to try and escape from the demons inside of him. Unfortunately, the urge to kill wouldn't subside that easily, and Tiago would begin to contemplate how he would accomplish his dark desires. This was when he decided to steal a work-issued .38 revolver, his weapon of choice, and used the motorbike to get around and began hunting to find his victims. He would usually drink right before looking for his prey because it gave him a liquid of courage. "I would think it over for some days," Tiago says. "There was no type, man or woman, that had nothing to do with it, but they had to be people I didn't know." So it began. Tiago's rampage would start in the year 2011. He started by targeting the homeless and later moved on to prostitutes and specifically homosexuals. Nobody would care about them, Tiago would state, and to him, this was the lowest hanging fruit and the easiest way to get started. Tiago recalls his very first kill was a boy named Diego Martins Mendes, aged 16. He claims that Diego approached him, propositioning him for sex. Tiago used this opportunity to lure the unsuspecting boy into an overgrowth, where he proceeded to strangle him and get rid of his body, which has since never been recovered. His following victim was a former co-worker who he stabbed to death, and another man who Tiago believed to be also gay. These 3 would be the first of at least 17 men he slayed during the 3 years he was active. You see, his method of killing was random, and his victims were random, and it played a major role in the amount of time that it took to get caught. He would either choke, stab, or shoot his victims, making it difficult for authorities to link the murders or establish a modus operandi, or MO. If that wasn't enough, his quiet and unsuspecting demeanor kept him off the radar from any suspicion, and as he prowled the city of Goyas, he would ride up to unsuspecting victims and yell out, "Robbery!" Of course, this would stop anyone dead in their tracks. And while Tiago had his victims' compliance, he would shoot his victims dead on the spot, but never take any valuables. To Tiago, the prize was the kill, which goes to show just how disturbed this individual really is. During the final year Tiago was active, he would target unsuspecting women he would find walking alone at night. These victims ranged in age from 14 to 29. He mentions that due to the rejection he experienced, he wanted to take out his rage on women. This is better known as misogyny, or a severe hatred towards women. For some reason, Tiago thought he deserved more than he earned when it came to the opposite sex, as if they owed him repentance. As Tiago continued his murders, the police and the general public became aware of just how many people were dying, but couldn't identify any one person to blame. Initially, thinking it was a series of culprits instead of just one active serial killer. To continue to remain under the radar, Tiago would steal the license plates off of other motorcycles so he couldn't be identified by anyone who may have witnessed his depravity. This would eventually be his downfall. One thing that police were certain of was that the perpetrator of these heinous murders was using a .38 caliber firearm, and one night, Tiago was pulled over by a police officer who noticed the plates on his motorcycle were reported stolen a while back. After he was taken into custody for having stolen plates, his home was searched, and what they found was the final nail in Tiago's coffin: a knife with dried blood, a stolen plate, and the .38 revolver, his weapon of choice. These were all confiscated and brought in for analysis. Tiago couldn't hide anymore. When he was finally arrested in October 2014, he had brutally slain 15 women within a span of 7 months. In the interrogation room, Tiago was quiet. He hardly looked up and seemed almost catatonic. Tiago claimed that he had felt bad for what he had done and that he was ashamed and wanted forgiveness. How legitimate these claims are is up for debate, though he would state that he tried to fight it off, the urges, but he was never strong enough. At one point, while being held in custody, Tiago began sharing details of his slayings. The detectives recalled that he would reveal details of a single murder at a time, and in between each victim, he would sit and almost get lost in thought. One thing that stuck out is that Tiago was almost smiling as he sat there, reminiscing about how he killed his victims. To Tiago, there was nothing better than taking the life of another. At one point stating, "Murdering helped alleviate my anxiety." And as the interrogations continued, Tiago had no recollection of faces or names of his victims, and only recalled in great detail the violence that he enacted on them. Quiet and calculated, he would only refer to his victims as numbers. When asked about a particular victim, he would state, "Which number? Oh, victim number 3, victim number 5. His very last victim was a young girl of 14 years old, who was, unfortunately, walking alone, which made her the perfect target for the monster that is Tiago Enrique Gomez de Rocha. On the second day after being caught, Tiago confessed to 39 murders, and he was given the nickname the Motorcycle Killer of Goyas. In May 2016, Tiago, the Motorcycle Killer, was finally sentenced to 343 years in prison, where he'll never see the light of day again. What could have caused such a depraved-minded spree like this one? Was it truly what he experienced throughout his life that made it almost impossible to resist the urge to kill? Was it truly an addiction that soothed his rampaging mind? It's these sort of questions and outcomes that baffle the general public on why someone would use the death and suffering of another to medicate themselves through traumas they have faced. In any case, thank you again for tuning in. I appreciate every one of you. Please, if you enjoy the content, leave a comment, a like, and subscribe, as I will be posting 3 to 5 videos per week to give you something interesting to listen to. With that being said, stay safe and until next time.